So this week, I have a very special guest. This person is responsible for much of the training that I've received over the years. And trust me, you're going to want to know this person.
Don't hang up that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. Well, seeing how we're pulling Category 6A, the most powerful twisted pair in the world, you got to ask yourself this one question. Did I pull 295 or 300 feet? Well, do you feel lucky? Do you, punk? In this podcast, you'll learn the differences between a 66 and 110 punch tool, the proper way to install a support cable, along with testing and certifying the cable. What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. So join us as we talk about the ever-changing world of telecommunications. From ISP to OSP, from copper to fiber, design to installation. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
So welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions that are submitted by installers, project managers, estimators, ICT personnel, and even from time to time, customers. On this show, we connect at the human level so that we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new content's being pushed out? If you're listening to this on podcasts, for example, like Google or Apple, would you mind leaving us a 5-star rating? And if you can't give us a 5-star rating, shoot me an email. Tell me what I can do better to make this a little bit better so I can get that 5-star rating. Those two little tricks helps us get this platform or this message out to more people so we can make a bigger impact on our industry. Don't forget our after hours live series, live stream broadcast on LinkedIn and on YouTube, Thursdays at 6 p.m., where you get to submit questions to be answered by your favorite RCDD. That would be me. And don't worry if you miss it because it is recorded and it's put on our page. So you can go back and watch that. If you have a question that you want to send it to questions@letstalkcabling.com. I give preference that questions submitted first because it gives me a little more time to research and get a little more depth. So unless it's the first time you've ever been watching me, you've heard me say countless times, in this industry, you need to be a constant learner. And if you're not learning, you're going to get left behind. Well, there's several ways that you can learn in our industry, such as reading trade magazines, white papers, or even attending some webcasts. Now, the perfect one-stop source for all this information is Cable Installation and Maintenance Magazine. As an instructor, every time I teach a class, I tell people to sign up for this magazine. Once you sign up, and by the way, it's free, they will send you a magazine once a month with new technology, updates in code, standards, updates, interesting projects, and of course, my favorite section, the back of the magazine. That's where all the latest and greatest products and tools are coming out that you can purchase and make your job just a little bit easier. So my guest today is Patrick, and he is the Director of Content at Endeavor Business Media, which publishes Cable Installation and Maintenance Magazine. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks very much for having me. Pleasure to be here. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. So two things before we get started into the questions. First one, yes. I saw you from Boston. Are you a Red Sox fan?
I am a Red Sox fan. I'll be honest that I'm one of those folks who lived and breathed and lived and died with the Red Sox leading up to that 2004 World Series win. And I'm one of the people whose interest has waned a little bit since that time. But as baseball teams go, the Red Sox are my team.
There you go. Well, I was hoping we could be really close friends, but I guess now we're just going to have to settle for friends because I'm an Orioles fan and I root for the Orioles. And the other team I root for is whoever's playing the Red Sox.
Yeah, well, when the Orioles are playing the Yankees, I'm on your side. So
there you go.
Maybe we can be even that way.
And then the second thing I want to touch base on, I just want to personally say thank you because of you, because of Cable Installation Maintenance Magazine, because of your webcast, you have, I wasn't joking. You've personally trained me. I mean, I got training through formal circumstance too, but the majority of the training I received was from your publication and from your efforts. I just wanted to personally put that out there to the public, that thank you for everything that you do.
Well, I appreciate that sentiment. I will. I want to state sort of off the top that I might be the face of of cabling installation and maintenance to many folks. There's an awful lot of people doing an awful lot of things that I just kind of get to claim credit for. But I appreciate that, and I'm so glad to hear you say that those webcasts in particular, and maybe some other products that we put out, are useful to you. It does mean a lot to hear that, and just glad that we're living up to the commitment that we try to make to the industry to be useful.
I think my favorite part is you record them and then you make
Right.
them available even afterwards, because quite often everybody's got a busy day. You're estimating jobs, you're a project manager driving a job site. You can't necessarily log in when you're actually conducting. I love the fact that you record them and then I can watch them at my own convenience and stuff. I think that's the best benefit of all that you guys put out there. So tell me, how did you get in the communications industry? Give us a little short bio of you and how you ended up where we are today.
Sure. Thanks. Well, before cabling installation and maintenance, I was, in publishing, in media, a writer reporter type, and I was covering the real estate industry, honestly. So when I was hired on to the staff of cabling installation and maintenance as a junior level writer and editor, I had a lot of learning to do. I remember, the first couple of months that I was on board, I couldn't read two sentences without running to a dictionary to look up what Ethernet was, and and what a twisted pair was, and eventually it all started making sense, and it was almost literally draw a picture for me, because I'll tell you that some of the schematics that have been developed in the industry and used as learning tools helped me a great deal when I was just entering and literally learning what was what. And if you don't mind me going on another half a minute or so, I do remember very early on in my time with cabling installation and maintenance, the man who hired me gave me a helpful, I won't call it a warning, but it was a helpful piece of wisdom. And he said, remember, the people who you're writing for know more than you do. And it was very obvious at the time. And it's remained true forever. But he told me that as I think as a motivation to do the best that I could, to be informative, to know that I was writing for a very educated and serious and professional audience, and to try to just stay top notch if that's possible in what I was producing for them. So thanks for that question and allowing me a chance to breathe on it a little bit.
Yeah, not a problem. And like I said, I couldn't, if I had to put a number to the webcast I watch, it'd probably be well over 100, because, my Bixie CECs, it's the best way to get them. They're free and you can watch them all the time. And I never had a negative feeling about you and the way you presented, because as an instructor, the worst thing you can do, like you said, is to come off the people who are probably smarter than you, is to come off as somebody who knows a lot of stuff. Just admit your weaknesses and they'll respect that, and they will. And it's funny you mentioned that you had to learn a lot. Our industry has its own language, and
Right.
especially when you talk about acronyms. And not only do we have a lot of acronyms, I think the only thing our industry loves more than acronyms is it loves changing acronyms. That's why every weekday morning about 8 o'clock or so on my LinkedIn profile, I put up an acronym challenge.
Right.
And I let
Right.
people answer and stuff. And it's
I
just to
like
help
it.
people kind of get used to acronyms and stuff. And sometimes some people go, Chuck, that's an old one. We don't call it that anymore. I'm like, yeah, but you might come across a customer that might call it that.
That's right. You
know?
might have some 25-year-old drawings somewhere at your customer site where they
Exactly.
talk about the TC, right? We all know what that used to stand for. We're not allowed to say that word anymore, but you're right. You're right.
And before that was an IDF.
That's right. Yeah.
So there you go. That's where all the gray hair comes from.
Mine too.
There you go. So Cable Installation and Maintenance Magazine produces videos and white papers and buyer's guides and the award for innovators and stuff.
Yeah.
How does your staff keep up with the blazing quick speed of our industry? Because it changes at the speed of light, just like the photon going down that fiber cable.
Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. And I try to remain a student. And I was talking a minute or so ago about having to dive deep into reference books. Early on in my days, I've tried not to lose that hunger for being a learner. And I know that some may say that our industry moves slower than other industries. Maybe we move slower than, say, software industries do, or your mobile phone industry, right? We don't necessarily have a new generation every year anymore. However, um, to use the cliche, change is the constant, and things are changing regularly. And again, I try to remain the best student that I can, in order to be as to produce content that's as useful as it can be for the audience. And another observation that I guess I've made over the years is that um, information that isn't necessarily brand new is going to be new to somebody. And I suspect you find that among your customer base and many of the people that you work with. Something that you may have been talking about working with and deploying for 3 or 4 or 5 or more years is brand new to some customer. And because it hasn't been relevant to them before, it's relevant to them now, and they're learning about it when others may have learned about it before. So I try to maintain some type of balance where we try to provide information that is new and is sort of on the edge and is talking about what's happening next, but accompany that with information that is going to be new to somebody, even though it's not new to everybody necessarily.
So where do you go for your learning sources then? Because you produce the most informative magazine out there. So you have to be getting your information from somewhere. How do you keep it current?
I'll be honest with you. I find that uh, many of the vendors in our industry, many of the manufacturers of products and systems, produce terrific materials that are educational, intended for their customers, I know, but are very useful to me as well. And I also try to keep tabs on what's happening within standards groups. And because much of our reach is North America and the US and Canada, I pay the most attention to the TIA, the Telecommunications Industry Association, and what's going on within their standards making group, because I find that that's a pretty good, I'd say, balance as well, because they often address what's happening. I'd say sort of, sometimes schematically. The standards that they produce uh, have a pretty good blend of technology and sort of scheme, if you will, scheme or design. So between keeping tabs on what's newly produced from the folks who are uh, building the systems or producing the products and systems, and trying to stay in touch with those who are producing the standards that are used by many in the industry, uh, that goes a long way, toward being somewhat up to speed, at least on what's new and what's coming as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of information because, when you're driving information from that many resources, you gotta really kind of filter it out because the way one manufacturer says to do something is going to be different from another manufacturer, which might be different from, Bixie's TDMM, which might be different from the code book. And just there's a
Right.
lot of information that you got to sort through, and you guys do a really good job of sifting that out. And I know that a lot of the articles are written by people who submit them to you and stuff, but
Right.
because of the standards, the way you have them write the articles, it makes them super easy to read and it boils it right down, gets straight to the point. Because as an estimator, as a project manager, or like now I'm an instructor, my time's valuable. And
Right.
I don't want to be sitting there reading something that's going to take me 15 minutes that I could really have read in, 7, you know,
Right.
and,
Right.
and you guys do a really great job of setting people up to help write those articles. Cable Installation Maintenance Magazines is touching every facet of the ICT industry. Speaking of those articles, how do you select the articles that you're going to be publishing in your magazine? How do you come up with that content?
Yeah. Well, I'll defer to a statement I use often. It says it's more art than science, right? I probably don't have a scientific formula for you here. I will say that on an annual basis, we produce an editorial calendar. We make a commitment to cover certain topics in each issue of the magazine. always want to reserve room and space and the opportunity for covering something that's not specifically on our editorial calendar. For example, right now, we're not even halfway through the year 2021, and I'm a good part of the way through having to come up with the editorial calendar for 2022. So if you think about the fact that I'm now drawing out what we're going to be covering as late as December of 2022, I can't know what's really going to be going on in the industry then. So we try to maintain a balance of covering what are sort of the bedrock topics that are probably going to remain relevant regardless of time or time or space kind of thing, but leaving open the opportunity um, for more pressing, more relevant content. How do we decide? And that's why I say it's more art than science. Um, I I enjoy and appreciate when articles get pitched to us. Somebody says, "Hey, I have an idea for this, and I want your audience to know about that." I especially enjoy it when it's from somebody who specifies, designs, installs, or uses these systems. If we get an article pitch from a user organization, university, a hospital, somebody who's putting these systems to use, I'm pleased as punch to hear about it. So I try to uh, maintain the position and let it be known that we are open to contributions about your sort of good, bad, and ugly experiences with the systems that we're talking about, because I really want the articles in the magazine. Thank you for the compliment. I want the articles in the magazine to be useful to those who are reading it, and because I want, when they see the next issue, I want them to pick it up thinking that what they're going to see then will be useful too.
It's funny you mentioned the good, the bad, and the ugly. A lot of you guys have a pretty good social media presence, and you put out your cable fail pictures and stuff.
Right.
And I usually snag them and I put them in a PowerPoint because I teach 2 times a week, 3 times a week, every week of the year. And before I start class, kind of as a prime to get students thinking, I put up this PowerPoint presentation of "Don't be this technician," and I'm just going through all that, and it gets people talking. It does. So with your articles, what percentage do you guys actually write in-house, and what percentage are submitted by industry experts?
It probably levels out over time. It probably levels out to be about 50-50. And there are there are times when it's heavy in one direction or the other, but that over a number of years, I've just kind of chalked that up to ebb and flow. And I'll be honest with you, Chuck, there are times when there are organizations in the industry, the vendors, the product and system manufacturers who we all know, who do contribute to the magazine. There are times when they are more active in doing so. If they've got new messaging to put out to the industry, I know that they may take the opportunity to use an article in the magazine as that form of messaging. So that's part of the ebb and flow. I try to maintain the persona of let's all be respectful to each other. Whether we're talking about an article in the magazine or on one of our live webcast seminars, let's refrain from putting out there a blatant sales pitch. Right. Again, going back to my first month on the job, when my boss said, "Remember, they know more than you do." I keep that in mind. We're going to a very intelligent, experienced audience who can smell it when they smell it, if you know what I mean. So just try to keep everything on the up and up to the extent possible. But it's it's a pretty healthy mix, I think, of what we put together in house and then what comes from the outside.
Yeah, I've never, in reading any of your articles, have never gotten the feeling that, I mean, you always get a tiny bit of that's a little bit of a sales pitch there, but the overall article, one sentence, okay, 2 sentences, okay, but the entire article, I've never gotten the feeling from anything that you guys have put out that this is a blatant sales pitch. And you're right. I mean, even my day job, because the podcast is my side gig. My day job, the company I work for, we have a whole marketing department, and they start pumping stuff out right before Dixie Winter Conference, because that's when all the new products comes out.
Right. Sure. And again, I try to be as transparent, across the board as I can, from one end of things with those who might be producing these articles to, the real important end of things, which is those who ultimately consume, and read them. And I just try not to have a false facade about anything. This is what it is. This is what we've got. We all know that manufacturers in the industry are only in business because they move products. And, at the same time, I'd say that those who specify, design, install, and then ultimately use those systems are also in the business, so to speak, because those products are useful to them. So, it's not. I just try to continuously. I keep saying maintain a balance, but really, what it comes down to is respect the whole chain, from beginning to end. And I like to think that I do so. And if I don't, I like to think that people will let me know about it too.
Yeah, you do an excellent job. You've always been fair and balanced, and I've never seen one manufacturer kind of take over and put out. You've always done a really good job. I would almost call it vendor neutral, because you've done a really good job with that. And I think
Well,
one of my
thank you.
favorite things that you guys put out is the webcast. So we kind of touched base on a little bit earlier, and they're a valuable resource to everybody. And I've always wondered, can you give us a little bit behind the scenes of all the stuff that goes on behind selecting, finding the stuff, and then actually hosting that event?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity to do that. I've I've thought about it, and I've actually documented it a few times from a corporate standpoint, because folks I report to, have asked from time to time, just how much time does it take, for one of these things to happen? And it's a safe bet that for each of these events, there's more than a half a day, and I'd say in a lot of cases, probably close to a full day worth of effort, spread over some time. And oftentimes, it begins with a discussion with whoever ultimately is going to be presenting about what topic to address, sort of what angle to take with it, where it should fall on the calendar, because we try not to cover topics that are essentially the same, very close in time to each other. Sometimes we can't avoid it, but we do avoid it when we can. So just starting with the topic and the scheduling of it is some consumption of time. There's sometimes I can be of assistance to a presenter with suggestions about what specifically goes in slides. Oftentimes I'm not, though. Very often a presenter comes up with their own, has their own, and I don't need to be involved, but I need to be available if needed there. There's prep too. If whether you receive an invite to these webcasts from an email, or you navigate to our website and see what's listed there, all of that has to happen. What goes onto that page, what goes into that email, doesn't just fall from the sky. So that's those are a couple of the hours that tick off and ultimately accumulate in time spent. Also, though, one of the most important preparatory activities is a walkthrough of the presentation environment with those who are going to present. There's a different interface for those who are presenting than what you see as an attendee. I call it the cockpit. That we're okay. This is where the buttons are. This is how it gets turned on and turned off, and this is where we can chat with each other if something's going awry. So we have that cockpit walkthrough, and I find that to be very important, because we've all lived on Zoom for the past year plus, right? We're all somewhat familiar with communicating digitally, and in a way, if you've been part of a WebEx or whatever else, fundamentally these systems do the same thing, but where the buttons are and what button does what is where the differences lie. So that's a fairly important part of it. We also, if you tune into our one of our webcasts, please know that we're already there. We all get together 30 minutes before we're going to go live, and we make sure that everybody's sound works and everybody's slides are moving the way that they should and everything else. So we're gathering there for 30 minutes before we go live. And then honestly, after we sign off, plenty of times there'll be a follow-up conversation with those who participated, whether something came up during the session that needs to be that needs to be addressed, or we talk about, we left 20 questions on the table because we didn't have time to answer them, or some of them were just better left as offline discussions. So we talk about having some tactics for addressing those if we can. And then, to be honest, Chuck, when that ends, we all hang up the phone. 15-minute walk after each one of them. So I count that as time spent as well, because that's my kind of battery recharge after one of them. So that's a lot of what goes on with them.
And you're probably like us too, because we do, because of COVID, we switched to the whole virtual class thing.
Right.
We're hopefully getting back to face-to-face classes here soon. But even with face-to-face classes, there's always, people don't realize, and I don't know how I came up with this number, but I figure it's about 4 hours of work for every 1 hour of content.
Yeah.
And it's everything from planning to doing it. And then you were kind. You left out how many emails do you get after one of your webcasts? I didn't get my certificate.
Well, sometimes they have to email me more than once, and I bet some of your listeners are in that very same boat. So I apologize for the delay, but they're on their way. I promise. There are a few. There are a few every time.
And it's usually user error. I mean, it's usually they misspelled their email or something like that and stuff like that. I get that all the time with classes, and we tell them, you'll get your certificate 7 to 10 business days, and then literally like the next day, I don't have my certificate. Okay. It takes time.
Some people are planners, right? These are probably people in the project management realm, who are the most astute about that, right? Because it's on their Gantt chart when they're going to get their certificate.
Or it's December 22nd. And they're
that's right.
Done with this already.
That's right.
Yeah, and they want to get their CECs because they got their they got to renew their Big C credential.
Right.
And they're in panic mode because they waited to the last minute. So,
well, we try to accommodate. As somebody who has been in crunch time, and I think we all have from time to time, we do try to accommodate and appreciate them being there, whatever day of the year it is.
Yep. So in your position, you get a bird's eye view of our industry because you get to talk to everybody. Where do you see our industry going in the next 10 years?
Wow, 10 years.
We can make it 5. We
don't
go that far out.
That's right. Yeah. Well, no, I've thought about this from time to time, and at the risk of this being a cop-out answer, I really hope it's not. I think we can do worse than looking to the past to try to think about make a prediction about what might happen in the future. So as I've done that, I think about how over the past handful of years, one example, what we call N-base T, or 2.5G base T, 5G base T, 10G base T has been around for an awful long time, yet these new standards came out specifying 2.5 and 5, gigabits per second over twisted pair. Some people looked at that and said, we're taking a step backwards. Speeds are only going to increase. Things have only ever gone linear, and we've only ever gotten faster. And we have 10 gig, and we have beyond that. Why would you go to 2.5 and 5? But it had a useful purpose, and that's what it did. People saying Moore's law, Moore's law, Moore's law. Well, there are more laws than Moore's law. Is one of the things. And another sort of technology-based example that I've thought about is single pair Ethernet. We're now talking about going back to 10 base T, but having it over 1,000 feet. So and we're talking about a single pair of copper conductors and what it's going to be able to do. So I bring those up to say that my maybe cop-out prediction for the future is that it won't be linear. The progress that we make won't be in one direction only. It'll be in a number of directions. And I think it comes down to how is the technology, the infrastructure going to help people and organizations, and how many of them is it going to help? I think about AV, audio visual systems, and the tremendous opportunity there, if you look at it as an opportunity for the technology that we know best. Who knows exactly, what types of speeds, we'll be talking about there. You may not be talking about 40 gigabits, necessarily, or whatever. But I think our future, at least the midterm future, is in serving applications that maybe we haven't served, in the past. And that's why I say the future won't necessarily be a linear climb upward in speed and in bandwidth, but rather, maybe more horizontal in spreading ourselves, if you will, or really spreading the technology that we work with across people and organizations and systems that it hasn't reached before. So kind of, I hope that's not too much of a non-answer,
No,
but
I
it's
think you hit the nail right on the head.
it's pretty broad.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. If we were just sticking to just telephone and computers, that growth would be linear. But we're bringing in so much more technology. You named them all: single pair Ethernet, HDMI signal extension products, AV stuff. Because
Right.
we're bringing other stuff in, and it's in its infancy stage as far as networking and signaling. It needs the 2.5 or the 5. It doesn't need the 10. And that's kind of, I think, it's why we saw the step back. And I think you hit the nail right on the head. Another thing I want to talk about is I feel our industry is getting old. And I think it's getting old because I went to the Bixie conference, the last live one they had in January before COVID. And I was looking around the room, and there's a bunch of old guys in there. And I was thinking, what is the industry going to do when we retire, right? We need to get more young people, not only in this industry. Matter of fact, I did a great interview with a 19-year-old lady who got in, and she's doing fiber splicing and sales and stuff.
Excellent.
But I think we really need to we need not only to attract them, but we need to set them up for the future, right? To be the future project managers, the future estimators, future business owners. What is Cable Installation and Maintenance Magazine doing to attract the young people and more diverse people coming into the ICT industry?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Chuck. I don't know that we are doing nearly enough. I mean, I very much appreciate a comment you made off the top that when you're teaching classes, you mention us and encourage people to subscribe, and that's very much appreciated. And again, to be honest with you, that's about the level at which we have tried to have tried to sort of ingratiate ourselves, if you will, with that next generation, getting to the level of community colleges and other learning programs where the new generation is coming in. So, but that's self-serving. That's getting us in front of the new generation of folks who are entering the industry. How do we encourage a new generation to enter the industry? I wish I had a terrific answer to that. I understand, the challenges. There's a group of young people, coming out of high school and deciding which path to take. And I am one of those people who believes that a 4-year college is not for everybody right away. And for those who are not pursuing that path immediately out of high school, I really hope that, well, I'll say this: there are many other paths for folks to take, even those who are getting into the technical trades. So it's incumbent upon our industry to make us the attractive one, to make us more attractive than being an HVAC technician or or an automobile technician, or really an electrician, for that matter, because that I know that there are plenty of folks who have come up through the electrical trade and do the work in our industry, but at the same time, our industry, of course, has created terrific learning programs for people who are just getting started, and we've got to make them choose that over anything else, including an electrical apprenticeship. That's just me stating the problem without stating an answer. I want to be part of the answer, and the extent to which I can encourage it, I want to. Something that we've been able to do over the past couple of years with, if you allow me to name drop a vendor, we've partnered with Fluke Networks over the past couple of years, and have done a salary and a compensation survey. And it hasn't been very lengthy, but it's gotten some useful information. One of the sort of compelling pieces of information that came out from our most recent one was that there's a real good opportunity in our industry for somebody with a high school education and, and some type of technical training to have a really good career. Higher education, the bachelor's degree and an engineering degree, have their own merits and rewards, and those were reflected as well. But what really was impressed upon me was that fact that somebody with a high school education and some technical training can make a good career. Now, it's all fine and good for us to know that. Let's take that information around, not just around our industry, but around to technical and trade schools, and use it as a recruitment aid, for these schools and these institutions who are bringing in the newest generation. So I think there's a lot more advocacy that can be done, and I'm looking in the mirror when I say this, and I hope to do more of it. And maybe that's one avenue that we could take to really beat the drum about the career and financial opportunities that are available in this trade.
Oh, absolutely. Because I don't know of anybody a long time ago when I was in high school, I don't remember anybody ever saying, I want to be a cable technician when I get out of high school.
Right.
You heard electrician, you heard plumbers, right?
Right.
And you're absolutely right. There's, with very little training. I mean, even if you go to a community college and you purchase one of the classes, you're only talking about a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 investment that you could be making literally six figures once you get in and get some experience and get some time built in. And
right.
This industry is done well by me and a lot of people. So we do need to get more people in this industry. We just absolutely do. Younger people in this industry.
Right.
Yeah. So any big plans at cable installation and maintenance that we need to know about? Anything new coming out, new and exciting?
Well, does a spinoff count?
Sure.
I'll call it a spinoff because we just launched a website, and we're in the process of putting together the final pieces of the first issue of a magazine that we have we have launched and are in the process of putting out there. It's called Smart Buildings Technology. And it is, as the name indicates, it focuses on, like the single pair Ethernet we were talking about a few minutes ago. Of course, some of the applications for SPE will be in intelligent buildings, and smart buildings technology is being operated by many of the same folks who operate cabling installation and maintenance. So in that way, I call it a spinoff. It's got a different focus. I'd say a broader focus. It sort of takes several steps back and take a look at the landscape type of focus. For those who are familiar with, the CSI, the master format, and what goes into building a building, if you think about that, it may sort of appropriately describe the realm that smart buildings technology will exist in. So we're pretty excited about it. We've often I've often believed that in the merits of intelligent building systems and all of that. I honestly believe right now that the commercial office building market is kind of at an inflection point. How occupied are they going to be moving forward? What's going to happen, in those buildings? In the workspaces, are workers going to need to remain distance apart from each other? In my office building when I was there over a year ago, I'd be essentially nose to nose with the person on the other side of the cubicle. I don't know if that's going to be the workspace anymore. So those types of considerations, which are very much in the realm of our industry, of the ICT industry, are part of the picture for the smart buildings technology launch. And like I said, we're pretty excited about it. And the industry that we're all in and that we serve certainly plays a role. And I hope that folks who are interested in that type of space and type of information might check it out. Smartbuildingstech.com is the website. If you don't mind a shameless plug, but that's where we're putting information out, in the magazine is soon to come as well.
I'll put a link in my in the description section of my YouTube, and I'll and I'll put it on the page when I publish this video. You're right. It's a whole new thing coming up, and it's another avenue, another bucket for us to reach in to grab revenue out of. A lot of companies can either be stagnant and then die, or they can look for new ways to make more money, because in certain industries slow down from time to time. And so when one industry slows down, if you're doing, smart building technology, or you're doing, AV signal extension stuff, that's just more stuff that you can do. So you become, I don't want to say recession proof, but maybe recession resilient. Maybe that's a better word for it. Yeah. So I'm gonna go look it up right now. As soon as I get back, Wednesday nights are Harley Davidson therapy nights. As soon as I get off with you, my wife and I are gonna do a short ride. When I get back,
all right,
I'm gonna go into that site. And I'm gonna be looking up. And does it have the ability to sign up for just like cable installation maintenance?
Exactly. Yeah, there are buttons on the site to sign up. We've got a newsletter that goes out twice a month, and a magazine that, to start with, is going to come out a few times a year, and we'll up that frequency as we get the train rolling.
Oh, very cool. This is a great conversation, Patrick. I don't know why it took so long for us to finally talk to you. I know you've been talking to me for years, but you haven't heard me talking to you. I appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, I appreciate the invitation. Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and your audience, and love what you're doing. And want to say thanks for all that you do. Of course, so much of what we talked about here is our topics and initiatives that you've advanced in the industry and continue to. So it's been my honor to speak with you today. I won't keep you from that Harley ride any longer, but just want to express the gratitude.
Thank you so much.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.